My father was a United Methodist pastor. 3 things about that. 1, he was a really kind, gentle, caring, compassionate man. 2, in the 1950s and 60s, as I was growing up, the term homeless hadn't been coined yet. Rather, the vernacular of the day was either bum or hobo. And it was very commonplace at that time for a hobo to come seeking some sort of assistance to the church or even to the parsonage, which was usually either next door or very close to the church. And so it was not uncommon at all for us to get a hobo come to the house. And 3, we moved a lot. We moved about every 2 to 5 years during those years. And so in 1968, when I was 15 and in 9th grade, we moved to Tyrone, Pennsylvania. And in Tyrone, the parsonage was nowhere near the church. It was on the new part of town. There wasn't too much in that area. It was along a wide thoroughfare. Really, the nearest thing to us was the high school complex, which was about a quarter mile up the road. And behind the high school was a small general hospital in a wooded area, and it was about a half a mile from our house. So one cold, wintry night in 1968, all the members of my family were awakened at dark 100 with the doorbell ringing. Well, my 15-year-old mind went immediately to, well, it's a hobo. It's weird that they don't normally come in the middle of the night, but whatever. So we all got up, and my dad immediately flies down the steps, and he's wrestling to get into his robe. And as he does that, my 80-year-old grandma and I started to huddle at the top of the steps so we could get a really good view of the door to make sure we saw what was going to take place. Well, Dad gets down to the landing, he flips on the light, he throws open the door, and immediately ushers into our home a frail, skinny, freezing cold, shivering older man who's muttering incoherently and is totally naked. So my dad was, as it turns out, he's not real good in a clutch situation. So he was fumbling around trying to figure out what to do, and all of a sudden he says, "Ruth, get me a towel." And I'm thinking, a towel? Why does this guy need a towel? Is he bleeding? Was it snowing out? Is the man wet? What's up with the towel? This man needs a lot of things, but I don't think a towel is one of them. Maybe a blanket or a coat, but again, whatever. So, having called up, my mother grabs a towel out of the upstairs bathroom, tosses it down the steps. Dad gets the towel, and he takes the towel and tries to wrap it around the man's shoulders, but alas, it is only a small hand towel that my mother had thrown down. So it only goes over part of one of the guy's shoulders. So this whole situation with the towel and the nighttime visitor is just striking me as absurdly funny. And I started to giggle at the top of the steps, and so did my grandma, because that's the way she rolled. And so that was the trigger that alerted my dad that there was an audience, and he shooed us away. Well, evidently, Dad called the police, because just a few minutes later, a police officer showed up at the door and came in the house. The police officer came in equipped with a blanket, and he quickly cloaked the man with the blanket, addressed the man by name. He said, "Mr. Smith, glad to see you. I'm glad we found you. We've been looking for you. We're going to get you warmed up. We're going to get you back to safety, and we'll take care of you." So, alas, this was not a hobo in the conventional sense, but it was a poor soul in need of some help. And as it turns out, the hospital had realized this man had walked out into the cold night some hours earlier, and they had alerted the police, so the police were already looking for him. Well, I never heard anything more about the man or the circumstances leading up to our nighttime visitor or the aftermath thereof. But it certainly did leave a great impression on me, if for no other reason than it was the first time I ever saw a naked man.